Love Island is the biggest conversation of the moment because it tells us something about how we think about dating and relationships. Like, who you support tells me something about you. And we are going to talk about that. The Love Island season finale was last night. It was lit. There's a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Marlon Palmer is here. Lainey Lui is here. And right here in studio with me, Commotion's very own Amelia Eqbal. Hello to all of you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Let's get right into the mess because I think the place to start is right here.
The winners of Love Island USA 2025 are Amelia and Brian.
I don't like it. I'm gonna start us off by saying I don't like it. I think Amaya is the greatest poet of her generation. I think Brian is a big question mark, but that's me. And this show is not about me and not about how I feel. I just want to take up a bit of space right at the start. Lainey, I'll start with you. What was your reaction as you saw Amaya and Brian get crowned winners?
Sorry, I have to go back to you. So if not Amaya and Brian, given the four couples that we had, who would you have wanted to see win it all?
Great question. America made many different mistakes along the way, among them voting off Ace and Shelley in the penultimate episode. They clearly should have not only been in the finale, but they should have won. But this isn't about me. This is about you, Lainey. You're the one who's talking about your reaction to the winners last night.
Listen, I think that of the four options that we had,
okay, you're trying to root me in
and
reality.
Brian were the best.
Yes.
The chaotic part of me, given how messy this season has been, would have wanted Nicolandria to win. And then in the moment where Ariana is like, hey, do you want to keep the money? I would have wanted Olandria to make history and be like, yeah, I'm going to keep the money in friend zone Nick. That was my ideal scenario.
Same thing for me, but Chris and Huda. And Chris takes the money.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that would have been my ideal scenario, just given how the season unfolded and the chaos. Like, why not just go chaos all the way?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of Amaya, I think that was the most wholesome way to conclude, because Amaya really was the most endearing sweetheart of the season.
I just want to acknowledge, first of all, that if you've never watched Love Island, these names are going to be difficult for you to parse, and I am so sorry. And also I understand this is what brought you here. Okay, Marlon, I will go over to you because you seem relatively at peace with the fact that Amaya and Brian won. What's going on there?
Well, we've seen that story before. Jess and Sammy in the UK version, that's kind of like the same story where she was just super adorable, but just kept catching L's left, right, and center. And of no fault of her own, just people couldn't handle her personality and her emotions. And with Amaya, we saw the same thing. There was many moments where she was on the verge of going home simply because she was too much for people. And I think a lot of women identified with that and gravitated towards her. And she became America's sweetheart. She's just adorable. She has those quotes. She's got the best branded name I've ever heard in Love Island history, Amaya Papaya. She's going to go so far with that. And I think ultimately, you have a guy like Brian who stepped up for her in a moment where no one was ever stepping up for her, not even our own friends. So I think that story coming together was really dope. And especially, I love when politics mix with TV. So you have two Latino people winning Love Island USA at a time where they're getting deported out of the United States. I think that's beautiful.
You said a lot there. I also want to pick up on the idea of the Amaya Papaya name. I'm just going to play this clip because the idea of Amaya winning this, the first thing that she does, as they're sort of crowned the winners, is she gives the speech. She turns it right around to the audience. Let's listen to it.
Thank you so much. And
You emotional made me emotional.
this is just a message to everyone out there who's misunderstood. Nobody should ever be tamed, and that there's always someone out there for you who's going to love you for you and appreciate all of your craziness or whoever you are. Don't ever settle for nobody. Oh my God. Oh.
Okay, I am not on board with Brian winning any of this at all. But however, Amelia's emotional reaction might turn me around on this. Okay, what was your reaction as you saw them win last night?
Listen, I didn't love Amaya when she came in. I also thought she was a little annoying at first, but she really did win me over. And as someone who also has been told that she's too much, like, hello, theater kid, I like truly felt like I had a representative in the villa, and that just seeing her find love and find someone who accepted her for everything she was is just a love story, like, as they've said, that you can all root for. And it just seemed like it really was a couple that you didn't see coming necessarily. Like in Casa, we didn't see them really gelling. And it was really that moment where he stood up for her that like this love story blossomed. And it was just like a last 11th hour like love story that I think was really exciting to see.
I honestly have no difficult time cheering for Amaya. I think like she's incredibly watchable. Every time that she opens her mouth, something fascinating comes out. She's got these wild metaphors that should just become a part of, like English, university. Yeah, exactly. Like they should become like, they should be studied in university, but there's something I think about that coupling that I was like, I'm not really sure I'm necessarily buying this, but this is not about me. Okay. This is about you, Marlon. And Marlon, I want to talk about what makes maybe Love Island different from other reality shows. Like, you've been watching this show since 2016. You were at one of the thousands of watch parties that were happening, like live last night. Tell me a little bit about what it is about that show that sort of like grabs your attention.
Listen, I used to pray for times like this. I felt so alone in Canada watching this show in the UK before there was Love Island US.
Yeah.
And I think going to that watch party really brought it all together for me. Like, you're just seeing, it is women's sports. Like that's what it looks like to me. It's like women are in there cheering for certain lines, cheering for certain acts of service, cheering for certain words of affirmation, and then booing when the guys aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And like, I think that's why a lot of guys gravitate towards it as well, because watching it with women, you can learn women. You know what I mean? It's a lot of conversations pop up from this show. And I think it serves as like a microcosm to the dating world in real life. Like, a lot of people who are just, okay, that didn't work out, moving on. And it's like, wait, were you not just in a relationship? Like, how are you just so easy? Like, Iris has just gone from one emotion and one guy to the next without missing a beat.
All the way to the
Hannah,
finale, mind you. Yeah.
Yeah. Hannah, we had that war cry moment where she's crying with the picture, and then the next day she's doing things in bed. So I think it just serves as like a microcosm to what dating life is like in the real world, and it offers up some great conversation.
Lainey, there's something about the show that has made it move from one of many reality shows to like a proper maybe referendum on how we live now. What do you think? How do you think the show made that transition, Lainey?
Well, I don't think we can talk about the runaway success of it without talking about last season and season 6. Like, that was really for Love Island USA, when the Little Sister franchise became like...
Because it started in the UK and then the USA became bigger.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right. And the strength of season 6 were the personalities, particularly the 3 lead girls who we refer to as PPG, right? That would be Janae, Serena, and Leah, who have, become now stars in their own right. And the key to last season and why we all loved it was because it was messy. There were some throwdowns that will go down in reality show history, but it felt real. Right. It felt like these people were reacting in the moment the way they should react, even though they're influencers, even though they knew they were on camera. Those reactions seemed so legitimate. Like they were really responding to betrayal, to disappointment, in a way that was very relatable. So the reason why this show has popped off, Love Island USA, is because of those people. The season 7 Islanders are the beneficiaries of season 6, and I don't think they carried the torch very well, frankly. But it really was season 6 that put the show over the top.
Amelia, I
thought it was going to be the last good one.
Well, hold on. I want to put this to Amelia because I do think like that's the migration that people seem to be talking about, right? The idea of like last season on Love Island USA, everyone was really beloved. You know, even though not necessarily the drama itself, but like people sort of had a reaction to the characters, a reaction to those people, and it became a part of the larger zeitgeist. And then you get to the season, which I should maybe explain to people who've never watched Love Island. It's taken place in real time, right? So like the show shot over 6 weeks on an island, and then the viewers, get to vote as that show is happening for who gets to leave or stay in the villa. And there's something to be said about watching contestants who are aware that they are playing to the audience at home, playing to the producers who are orchestrating the drama, because obviously they want to get a good cut because there's 5 episodes a week, which is a lot. When you think about the way that people reacted to people last season and then this season, what do you think was different about this season?
I think this season, I mean, last season we saw a lot of chatter online and a lot of conversation after every episode. And this season, I feel like amped that up even more to the point where the fans were almost like steering the season in ways that I wasn't really anticipating. So, for example, we had 2 Islanders sent home because of people at home looking up their social media online and digging and finding less savory moments from their feeds, specifically moments where they use racial slurs and calling for them to be dismissed from the villa. And they were the next day or almost immediately. And that's what happens when you have a show that's filming in real time, is that they can be this responsive. And so the fans certainly have become more vocal, and the production has certainly showed that they're listening. And so I feel like that's just one instance where we really saw a lot of production this season, where it felt a little more hands-on than hands-off. Whereas last season, I feel like they really felt let the relationships flourish on themselves and kind of let the challenges egg those on. Whereas this one, I felt the challenges even were meant to be a little bit more divisive, meant to be a little bit more mess-inducing instead of love-inducing.
Marlon, I want to come to you on this in just a moment, but Lainey, if I can just sort of like push that a little bit further, you know, like Sierra, for example, who made it pretty far along the way, and then she was kicked off a week ago off the island because she did use an anti-Asian slur. She's now sort of like trying to like apologize, but also trying to say, hey, the amount of hate that I'm receiving is quite overwhelming. You saw Love Island sort of post on the social media pages being like, please don't harass our contestants. There were some stories and some reports of like Huda, who's a mamacita, if you will. The father of her child, like someone sort of like tried to dox him and out him. How are you thinking about the ways that the show maybe encouraged people to sort of fans to invest themselves into the contestants' lives, and how do you kind of begin to pull that back?
Well, as Amelia said, you know, last season we saw the fans, the chatter online really become an asset for the show. Unfortunately, I don't know that it was as much of an asset this season, even though the chatter was even stronger, because it became fan wars, from what I saw at least. You know, I am an East Asian person. The slur that Sierra used was against my people. And as offensive as I find those slurs to be, I can also hold space for the fact that I don't think that many of the people calling her out were motivated by allyship for the East Asian community, but more motivated by advancing their favorite. That is what a fan war is called. So when you have a show that's supposed to be about love and you're asking the audience to root for the couple you think has the best connection, but it turns into, I'm here, you know, voting for my fave, I'm not here necessarily voting for love, then I think the energy and the spirit of the show has been compromised. And so this is the challenge for Love Island USA going forward, is to how to stop these fan wars, or at least remind people what you're participating in is strong connections, not who you like and who you, it's up to those people on the island to decide who they like. You know, it's up to you to decide whether or not their like has legs and whether or not you believe in what they've created in that connection. So I find it very, as a fan, I'm quite worried about this, because we don't need more fan wars. I mean, let's leave that to, you know, Swift, Hailey Bieber's versus Selena.
Okay,
you know.
Marlon, I saw you were going to weigh in on this, on the social media aspect of this and how this played out. I'll give you a moment to just react there.
I think producers have a lot to blame with this, and I think the amount of time in the villa has a lot to blame with this. As opposed to the UK, where it's 60 days, this is 30 days. So you don't have as much time to establish those connections. Also, with the way that they, the formula for the show this season was the worst I've ever seen.
100%.
We saw probably 2 recouplings the entire time. We saw maybe 2 dates. When in Love Island, that's pretty much all it is recoupling and dates. And so, and I've also seen the UK blow up and their linchpin moment, and compared to the US's. And I feel like the UK has still maintained a standard of we're voting for the best couple. Whereas American has gone for who do we like the most? And I don't know if
so
that's
American.
That's
that
an
is so
ideology.
American. Yeah.
It feels like an ideology thing more than a show thing. And so I don't know what they have to do to change that. I don't think they can at this point. Especially when you see something like Huda HQ on Twitter, like with her whole army, and they're conspiring to buy followers and report people's pages so they get less votes. It's just got very messy, and yeah, I'm not a fan.
Regrettably, you've stumbled onto a Huda Army HQ right here, and so I will not bear...
The Hood Rats.
This is us. This is us. I will not bear one bad word against Huda on the show.
Worst person in Love Island history. Worst person in Love Island history.
My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Lainey Lui is here with her jaw on the floor. Marlon Palmer is here shaking his head. And Amelia Eqbal is right next to me, also shaking her head. I am not taking any notes on that. What I do want to do is actually play you guys a clip. Have a listen to this right now.
It's given on TV, but bitch, y'all is really beautiful as hell in real life. This is so crazy. I cannot believe I'm here. I am the new bombshell getting turned in the villa, baby. I'm finna shake the table. Love Island is not ready for this type of bombshell.
That's Megan Thee Stallion, maybe the person who had the most connection with Huda the entire time on Love Island, possibly. Amelia, there is something about the show that is like, it's not about hyper-femininity and hyper-masculinity, but maybe about a particularly winning version of femininity. When you think about the show, what is the version of femininity that this show is trying to like maybe center?
Oh, God, that's such a hard question. But I think that there are some themes that we see that really get people far. So number one, I think you need to know your worth, very much so, but you can't take yourself too seriously. You need to have a really good sense of humor. You need to be sexy, but there are bounds to the amount of sexuality you can show.
Are you giving the Barbie speech right now? Like the America Ferrera
America Ferrera
speech?
was talking about Love Island USA Season 7. She just didn't know it at the time. And there's this thing where you have to be a girl's girl. This has really come up this season in particular, but the femininity that really gets you far is someone who is loyal, but still looking out for herself, who is sexy, but not overly sexual, as we saw with Huda and the reaction she got during the heart rate challenge, and just women who are really there to toe the line between being there for themselves and being there for Friendship Island as much as Love Island.
I think the idea of a girl's girl, like that's the thing that's going to win you votes. Otherwise, you're not going to get those votes.
Yeah.
I want to play another clip. Let's have a listen to this.
You have to promise me you're not going to say anything to any of the other guys because it's not their business. But I'm a mommy.
Mommy.
Mommy?
I'm a mom.
Mamacita.
Mamacita.
No, I'm a mommy.
A mom of what? A dog?
Like a dog?
I have a daughter.
Like in real life?
Yeah.
Like a daughter, like a real baby?
Yeah, like a human child.
Wait, that's so cute.
Thanks.
How old is he or she?
She's 4. She's going to be 5 this
No
year.
way.
That is Nick, and it is not clocking to him. At no point is he going like, oh, I understand that Hood is trying to tell me that she's the parent of a 5-year-old child. I want to talk about this with you, Marlon, because I feel like the story of men on Love Island is an interesting one. And you were talking just before the show about Ace and Shelley, who got, they were kicked out of the island, the second last episode. And you're like, I have a theory about specifically women who hate Ace, which is to say, like, you have a theory about the kind of masculinity that is portrayed on the show and the ways that we react to that. What is your theory? Tell me about like the version of masculinity that transcends on the show.
Well, for the men, the bar is not nearly as high as the women. just
don't
like in
say.
real life.
Yeah.
And just like a microcosm, it's you just have to be a decent guy. Literally, that's all you have to do is be a decent guy, be chivalrous.
Lainey's
and
throwing her hands up in the air.
You'll be fine. Really, that's all, because the bar is so low for men that all you have to do is be a decent guy. Like we saw Pepe. I couldn't tell you his personality.
I
but
still
know he's
can't.
a decent guy.
He made it to the finale. I have no
But
idea
I know
what
he's a decent guy. He got there being just a good guy. You know what I mean? And I think obviously women value a man that's good with communication on the show. But we've seen with Ace, one thing that I see constantly demonized by women on the show is men with boundaries. They don't like men with boundaries, especially the way that they enforce those boundaries. Ace was very calm.
The looks you are getting right now from the rest of this panel, by the way.
Exactly. This is what it is. You're seeing it in real time. But this is what I'm saying. His establishing his boundaries very early on, like they had just coupled up, right?
Yeah.
But in the way Love Island moves, it moves so quickly that if you aren't doing what other couples are doing, it's looked as no progress. It's looked at as you don't like me. It's looked at as confusion. And so he very plainly and calmly laid out what his boundaries were and like how he moves in a relationship. Not saying he wouldn't get there, but he's just saying for now, this is where I'm at. Amaya did not like that, and neither did America. Women were destroying him online. And now only after the show has ended are people going back and replaying the video and being like, you know what? It wasn't that bad now that Amaya's apologized for that interaction.
I'm remembering that interaction and I'm remembering the way that it played on TV, and it played really awkwardly. But you're right to say that he was actually very calmly being like, "We'll see how this goes. I don't know. Yeah. It just needs to take a bit more time." And then the reaction as we were watching that scene unfold is, it felt like very dramatic music was playing, and I was like, there was like a disconnection between the words coming out of his mouth, and the sort of like the ways that the scene was shot, which is like, yeah, you're right.
They gotta create a show.
But I don't think that's why people were not connecting with him. Having said that, I like a man who cries, and he spent a reasonable amount of the show, being like, yeah, he can be in touch with his emotions. We are gonna obviously have to go longer than the radio show on this conversation because there's a lot more to talk about. But maybe Lainey, before we sort of end the radio portion of this conversation, we're working with this idea that like this show is the show of the summer, maybe the show of the moment. What does Love Island tell us about where we are as a culture right now?
Well, I'll tell you what it tells me.
Okay.
It tells me that I'm so happy I'm not single.
Correct. The only correct answer.
Streets are ghetto.
Because what it tells me as a watcher, the reason really I tune in is because I think it's sociology to see what dating culture is like. Yeah. And it's not just about the hookup culture. It's not just about, the drama. It's actually about how incapable many of these people, and Marlon said this was a reflection of our culture, the dating culture, and it really is, because it really exposes how incapable a lot of people are of communicating.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because all of them know what the love languages are off by heart. They can cite it. They just don't know what it means. They actually don't understand the foundation of what love languages are. They don't listen to each other. They can't wait to speak.
Correct.
Huda.
And
These are all Huda, by the way.
No, I do think it's all of them. I also think it's Ace.
I also think it's Ace.
Who declared himself a master of communication, but didn't know the right way to communicate with someone and choose timing. Like that is what you learn, though. And I do think, and this is a bigger conversation, it's because we're dealing with a generation of people who are grown on this. Yeah. And so when you put them face to face only, they have to communicate face to face with words. Half the words they don't understand what they mean, by the way. None of them know what ironic means. Nobody. So what happens is that when they are in face-to-face conversations from a generation that we have heard that have a hard time ordering in person at a restaurant, when they have to be face-to-face in a relationship, it is, and that's what I love watching. I love watching because I hope that other people watching can learn from this and be like, we have to stop dating here and actually try it out to figure it out. But that's my that's why I love watching this show as a student.
I'll admit to you that, like, I'm not a close Love Island follower. I have a friend who, very closely follows it, and every time that I sort of like catch a glimpse of an episode, what I'm learning is, like, what I'm actually watching for is people who are like, they want something and they don't know how to say that's the thing that they want, and like that is not an easy muscle for a lot of people to exercise. Also, we are out of time. I have to leave it there in terms of the radio audience. So I just want to say to the folks who are listening on the radio, there's going to be more of this conversation wherever you get your podcast. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it online. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion, and we will see you on the radio tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to keep going, and maybe, Amelia, I'll ask you the same question, this idea of, like, what do you think Love Island tells us about where we are as a culture? Like, what's the thing that we maybe take away from the show as we sit down, take it in, watch these people sort of have very difficult relationships and try to manage them?
Well, I honestly would have said the same thing Lainey said, which is that, A, I'm so glad I'm not single. To my boyfriends listening, please don't leave me. Number one. Number two, I would also say, like, communication and commitment phobia was, like, so prevalent to me this season. And I'm going to use Ace and Shelley as a perfect example. Ace and Shelley came in and knew each other from outside. They'd met at a club once, then they went their separate ways. They didn't know if they would ever see each other again. And then that second chance romance, they could have won it all. However, Mr. Ace, I got to play the field and meet every single girl in this villa and talk to every single girl to know that I want to be with Shelley. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have gotten to know other people, but I'm saying he could have known way sooner that Shelley wanted to be with him. And likewise, Shelley was in that love triangle with Austin and Ace for way longer than she needed to be. I think we all knew she was not feeling the funk with Austin. And then later, when she's like, oh, I want to explore Chris, but then didn't actually want to give Chris the time of day and just wanted Chris to run after her, she also could have known that she really just wanted to be with Ace. And so, like, for them two, I think in particular, I really noticed, like, we were not willing to lock it down, and they could have done it weeks sooner than they really did.
Winning.
And they could have won it all. In my personal opinion, they just made many errors along the way.
My favorite thing in the world is, I was supposed to ask the same question to Marlon, but I can't, because Marlon was losing his mind. His headphones were coming out of his... Go ahead.
Ace was exploring. He was in a love triangle from day one. What is he supposed to do? Sit around and wait?
He went to Shelley 1 minute and the next minute be like, but I want to stay open. He was like, oh, I want to explore you, but I want to stay open.
They just got there.
Yeah, and so he talked to every other people, but then he just, what do you mean? He talked to Iris, he talked to Amaya. He could have picked Shelley and he picked Amaya. Do you not remember this?
He had like a 5-minute conversation with Iris. He picked Amaya because Shelley was still confused about him and Austin. Shelley is the problem. I want you guys to know that.
He is a problem.
Ace made a yoga date, a dance date, an exercise date. He made her breakfast every morning.
Competition.
And she still was like, I don't know, even though the other guy in both situations was not returning the energy. Austin didn't return that energy. Chris didn't return that energy, but yet he's still on the same level as them.
Ace said it best, where he's like, he doesn't like to lose. To me, that was him competing. That was him playing the game. That was not love. That was chess.
I was like,
no, for men, relationships are a game as well. We will compete for the woman.
And now the defense for Ace rests, I assume. Marlon, I wanna let's go big picture here, and maybe the same question that I put to the two of them. What do you think Love Island tells us about where we are as a culture right now?
I think that we like it has been said, it's the communication. Honestly, it's the biggest thing in Love Island that is a barrier to people getting further in their relationships, and a barrier to people even getting into relationships, because they'll tell their friends everything. Like Chris was letting his heart open to the guys every moment he had, and then when it came to Hood, it was like, yeah, you know, like he just got very tight-lipped. And I think that it's also, I think this is the most self-aware villa that has been aware of the cameras. Yeah. I've never seen people so aware and speaking to America through people. I hated seeing that. It was like they're constantly trying to convince us at home that they were good people via the people in the villa. And I think that also is telling of relationships, because you have a lot of people who are performative with their relationships and just trying to look like a good person. And then you hear all these things after the fact. So it's It's interesting. I want to see it progress further. I want to see people learn from past seasons and not bring it into the next one. And I'd like to see some like real love again. Like with the season 6 had real yearners, real beggars. You know what I mean? This season, it was like, oh, you don't want me? All right. Yeah. Like look at Chris's reaction to Huda. That was the most insane thing I've ever seen. And he's a decent guy, but that was cold. Like that was super cold.
Which tells you like you're not really here to try to like find some kind of love connection. This doesn't mean anything to you, or doesn't mean much to you. That's what you're taking away from that.
But the communication, because he wanted to break things off with her, but he didn't know how to say it, so he put it on her and started acting even colder to her so that she would do it. And I think that that's just so cowardly. But it's a big reflection of how people deal with situations that they don't know how to speak their way out of.
We got to wrap things up here. So it's like with the last 2 minutes left that we have, maybe Amelia and then Lainey, I'll go to you. But the thing that Marlon just said about the idea that this is the most aware of the camera's cast, how do you think that changes how you watch this thing? Like, do you watch them as people who are making deliberate choices for the camera more so than usual?
Yeah, I find it makes it harder to root for people because then you're like questioning their motives. And so I think for me, like the reason Maya won is because she felt authentic. Like, yes, she was like playing to the camera, but it didn't feel like she was there to play to the camera. It felt like she was there generally to find somebody who liked her. Yeah. Whereas other people, I feel like we were very clear that like they were really playing to the camera and trying to get the right angles, or like going to the speakeasy to make sure they had a conversation there where there's one camera that can get their good close angle versus like in the open space. Like the way people choose where they had their conversations, I think was really interesting. And it just made it feel obviously fake. Obviously, like, you know, reality TV is fake, but I think the way the players moved this season in the villa made it feel even more manufactured and plastic. And that made it harder to, I think, root for people in the end.
Lainey, a minute here. What was your reaction to how aware they were of the cameras?
Same. And not only if it was their performance in terms of which room they chose to be in and which camera, but in the language. We heard the word explore so much.
I just want to explore this connection, you know? I just want to explore what's there.
And it's like, listen, that's always been Love Island, explore. But it almost felt like some of them came in with the idea that they would be rewarded for exploring based on previous seasons. Instead of like, there is also nothing wrong with meeting a day one and riding it all out. Like 1000%. Nobody said that was bad, but somehow that was villainized
in the villa.
It was villainized because they remembered past seasons and were responding accordingly to that script. And so there's layers upon layers of awareness. And frankly, that's also why, to me, Ace became kind of annoying, because Ace seemed to be this Don Corleone who was like, explore. And I was like, oh, okay, like, you know, it's okay not to explore if you feel really good about this one person, and then let the show challenge that connection. That's how Love Island's supposed to work, with bombshells and whatever. Anyway, that's the self-awareness piece that layered on top of the performance and how people presented themselves.
Except for Jeremiah. Just wanted to add that.
Hey,
he was right about Jeremiah.
I just two things, and then Marlon, I'm going to give you the last word. The one thing that pops to mind is friend of the show, Andrea Weirhan, is sort of like she's got this really interesting theory about how the ways that we are talking about polyamory has changed, right? And so there's something about the ways that we're talking about polyamory, culturally speaking, and this show kind of crashes into it. The idea that like you are in a room with a person that you have a connection with, but also like you're aware that they have a connection with other people in the same room at the same time. I think watching that show changes people's relationship to poly relationships, but also it does make it a bit more likely that you're going to hear someone go, I'm here to explore the other connections. And I think like that becomes a through line that is maybe a bit more comfortable to hear. Mind you, the show is still awarding a couple who say like, well, this is the thing at the end of the entire run. Marlon, maybe the place to leave it is this idea of collective investment, because we talked about what we culturally get out of the show. But there's also the watch parties that we're talking about, the sort of the online reaction that like the minute that, you know, the episode begins to air, then you see everybody on your feed live tweeting at the same time. The breakdown podcast afterwards, you know, like there is a level of investment in the show that I think is like really interesting. What do you think this tells us about just like our need for community? Because it feels like we're not talking to other people about relationships, and this is maybe we can't talk about our own relationships, but we can talk about them when we see them on TV.
Absolutely. I think there's, like you said, community. Like there's something very communal about all of us watching TV at the same time. I don't think there's a better time to be on social media than everyone watching the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Scandal kind of started that wave, and we see it with every award show. Award shows have gotten 10 times more entertaining for me because of Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And so, yeah, it's just that community aspect of it. And also you're getting to watch a journey. You know what I mean? Like I can't speak for Love Island US because only the last season really got the fruits of their labor. Like Leah just became COO of a perfume company. And even that is a little late because if you compare it to the UK, you have someone like Molly May who became CEO of Pretty Little Thing or something like that, of one of those big companies over there off the back of the show. Now has her own like $500 million empire. Like, and this has been happening in the UK every season. They leave deals like right away.
Yeah.
And you've seen it with, I think this season really was the start of that when you see Jalen leave, who was on there for just 2 days. 2 days. Came out, made one TikTok, over 1 million followers. Every brand is in his comment section wanting to work with him. So it's penetrated pop culture at this point. When you see Tim Hortons doing Mamacita, like, you know, that's when you know it's like, oh, the brands are in.
Yeah.
It's about to go even crazier. And so I think that's either going to have a detriment to the show or add to it. But either way, we're going to see next season.
I appreciate all of you being here. This has been a delight. Thank you so much for your time. This is the best. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Marlon Palmer is a comedian, podcaster, and hosts a morning show on Flow 98.7. He's also the lead attorney for Ace, I believe. He was in Toronto. Lainey Lui is Etalk senior correspondent and the founder of LaineyGossip.com. Amelia Eqbal is our digital producer right here on Commotion. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, have a great time and cheer for Huda always. Thank you.